Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. As usual these days, I'm joined by our Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director, Chief Reggie Freeman, as well as our Health and Human Services Director, Liani Arroyo, both of whom are working around the clock, along with many others on the team, to coordinate our response effort. But also joined today by our Superintendent, Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez, and by the Chair of the Board of Education, Aisha Clark. And today we have a couple of significant announcements, and I want to say thank you to the superintendent and to the team at the Board of Education who have been working nonstop on a couple of new initiatives. First of all, over the past week, we have seen the numbers of families and children picking up meals from our school meal distribution sites rise every single day, which is good news. As you know, before we even announced the closure of schools, we made sure that there was a plan in place to distribute food, distribute both lunches and breakfasts to our students, because so many of our young people depend on those breakfasts and lunches from our schools. We also said that we would learn and we would adjust as we go. And today we are announcing that we are adjusting that process. We will be doing the school distribution now from 16 locations. That's doubling the number of locations. Those will be school locations. You can find those 16 schools listed at hartfordschools.org. And they will be open for a longer period of time on the days when they're open, so for 3 hours each day. And they're going to be open, instead of every single day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Another important thing is that the meals will be heatable and reheatable. So families can take meals, they can take the meals that they'll need for that day, the coming days, bring them home. Hopefully that will also help with weekends in many cases. But hopefully by doubling the number of distribution sites, by changing a little bit the model of how this is working, we can get even more meals out to more families. That is our goal, and we're going to constantly reassess and adjust if we need to. But again, I want to say thank you to the the Hartford Public School team that has been out there at each of these sites, and to everybody who's continuing to implement what is a pretty complicated and vitally important initiative. The other significant step that the Board of Education is taking is to begin moving towards the implementation of a remote learning or distance learning program. And as you know, the already stark disparities between communities are even starker now. And one of the things that has been put in stark relief is the incredible difference in access to technology, the digital divide that we already know about, but right now means that in our community, distance learning is very difficult because so many of our young people don't have the devices, don't have the technology that we need. Starting today, the Hartford Public Schools has begun rolling out the distribution of thousands of Chromebooks to students in the Hartford Public Schools who don't have those devices. And by doing that, we hope to make possible remote learning, distance learning to be fully implemented soon. I cannot express enough on behalf of the entire city, our appreciation to the team at Hartford Public Schools and to the team at MHIS. That's our technology team, our IT team that has been working to get that ready. So our superintendent will have more to say on that, but I am deeply grateful. It is an enormously important initiative, and as you can imagine, a very complex one. I also want to say a couple of other things before I turn it over to the superintendent and then opening it up for questions. We had said that we were working to identify locations that could be used as quarantine facilities for those who are in our homeless shelters in the event that any of our homeless sheltered community is tested positive for the coronavirus. We have identified 2 locations. One of them is the Willie Ware Center on Windsor Street, and the other one is the Governor's Foot Guard Armory. We are in the process now of getting those sites fitted out and ready. We have not yet had, to our knowledge, any positive cases positive test results for individuals in our shelters. But we're going to pay very close attention to that, and we're working hand in hand with the hospitals to make sure that we have the protocol in place for notification, for priority testing, and for the isolation of any individuals, because as we've talked about at a couple of other of these press conferences, the vulnerability of our homeless community is something that is of great concern to me and to our entire team. Finally, this is a time when everybody is stepping up in different ways, and I want to just say thank you to the Hartford Flavor Company, one of our distilleries who has been making some great liquor for a while. They've now turned their operation to making hand sanitizer, and they are supplying our first responders with that hand sanitizer. So I want to say thank you to them, and also just hold them up as an example of the many, many different individuals, organizations who are asking how they can help, and then going a step further and putting that plan into action and helping in any way they can. To that point, there are many individuals who have reached out and asked how they can help. And there are a number of ways that you can. First and foremost is to take our social distancing guidance and requirements seriously. The biggest way you can help right now is by staying away from crowds, staying away from groups, not recreating social gathering situations, washing your hands a lot, washing them well, not shaking hands, all those basic precautions. I say that seriously. That is truly the best way that you can help. If you are interested and willing to volunteer your time to help those who need support right now, there are some ways. One thing in particular that we are all very focused on is the food security of our community at this time when so many families, so many jobs are disappearing, so many families are seeing their income disrupted. We're going to continue to see greater need at our food pantries. We're going to continue to see unprecedented need, I think, to get food distributed. And as you can imagine, organizations that rely on volunteers to do their work are in many cases seeing that volunteer base dry up or get challenged, as some of those folks need to stay home to take care of their own kids, or as for health reasons people decide to stay isolated. And so if you do want to help with that effort, I encourage you to reach out to FoodShare. You can just go to the FoodShare website and volunteer, or you can reach out to us. You can always call 311, and if you are interested in helping out, let us know. We are also talking with a number of restaurateurs around the area that have offered to volunteer, and seeing what we can do to try to coordinate a larger food distribution effort for our community at large. So those are just a few things. There's lots more that we can talk about, and I'm happy to take any questions. But with that, let me turn it over to our superintendent, and as she comes out, let me just say thank you again to her for her leadership, to Aisha Clark, our board chair, and to the entire team at the Hartford Public Schools for their leadership and their partnership and everything they're doing right now for our kids and our community.
I want to thank Mayor Bronin and his team as well, not only for the partnership, the leadership, but the guidance. As you know, in the past few weeks, we've had to rely heavily on their expertise with regard to public safety and other matters. I just want to offer just a few specific details as to the continuation of learning plan that we have been diligently thinking through this week, and will be leaning into even more heavily next week with our senior leadership team, with our administrators, and even with some of our teachers. And you know, we care deeply about our students. Clearly, we've been really focused on food security, and you know, I looked at the numbers, and this week alone, over 12,000 meals. Just today, we made sure that our students that came to pick up meals went home with meals for the weekend as well. And so 12,800 meals this week. And so, you know, the caring extends to the learning for our students, and the continuation of learning plan is going to evolve to encompass two elements. One is distance learning that may entail e-learning, which is web-based, and then tech-free learning as well. We are mindful that not all of our families may have access to the internet, so we're providing our families with the information necessary to have access to free services from some of our providers, like Comcast, for example, who's been diligently reaching out to us. We are grateful. And making sure that we have the necessary staff and even support from volunteers to distribute the 10,000 devices that we have. We are going to have a prioritized process. We want to make sure that the students that need them the most have access to them. This means that we encourage the families that already have a device to allow those that do not have access to the devices to have one. Prioritizing, for example, the 416 homeless students that we have. Prioritizing the upper classmen, making sure that our seniors and our high school students have access to the technology. We know that those 10,000 do not cover the 19,000 students that we have. So we continue to work through those, making sure that our students have equitable access. With regard to, and the mayor referenced this very specific detail, we have moved to expanding the meal sites, and we're going to use those sites to also distribute the devices. We want to make sure that we limit the amount of crowding that takes place, which is why we have expanded the number of sites and also have gone to a 3-day distribution as well. I'll stop there if anyone has any questions with regard to the details. That's a great question. We have had, there was a donor that we have not been able to confirm yet, but that was yesterday. And there is another one that just recently reached out to me. And so more than welcome to engage with any partnership around the donations of the devices for our students.
How many Chromebooks total have been distributed?
Oh, today was the first day. We reached out to 2 of our neighborhood high schools just last night, so very short time, and over 420 actually was the total in 2 high schools today for a three-hour period. Next week, however, is going to be the entire week devoted to the distribution. So lots of communication that we're going to, try to work through with our community, with our partners, to make sure our families understand the locations and how we can support our families as well. This is an evolving process for all of us to do this at scale across 40 schools. We are in collaboration and continue to work with our teachers union, for example, knowing that this is new learning, a new way of work for all of us. And we are grateful to the teachers that have already reached out to us, even before we were having external conversations about the potential for a distance learning, and they're at the ready to go. We have magnificent, lots of talent in our schools that have been doing this type of work, and we're going to leverage the internal capacity that we have. So if they do not have access to the Wi-Fi, this is why it's so important for us to collaborate with other providers that are providing those services for free, and using our own citywide services as well.
What's the total for Chromebooks?
10,000. Not as of yet, no.
So I just want to, Jody, to your question about that gap, the 19,000 students and the 10,000 Chromebooks. Superintendent, feel free to jump in and correct any of this, but I think a couple of things are worth saying. One, we are prioritizing distribution first for our high schools, and we are not prioritizing distribution for those kids under 3rd grade. So for the technology and distance learning, it's really focused on a priority basis, but from our high schools down to 3rd grade. So there are a few thousand students below 3rd grade that will not be in that top tier for distribution of these devices. There also are families in our community who have access to these devices already. And the truth is, we have no way of verifying for certain whether somebody does or does not have access to a device, but we're asking everybody, please, if you have access to a device that can access the internet and can work with the remote distance learning plan that the Board of Education has put in place, please don't take one of the Chromebooks. Please leave them for a family and a child who doesn't have access right now. And we will accept partnership and support and donations from anybody who wants to help us fill that gap more. But hopefully, between that very large-scale distribution of 10,000 Chromebooks over the course of a week, as you can imagine, that's a large-scale operation. Between that, the prioritization, hopefully families, some families saying, we don't need it at this time, let's let somebody else have it, and any partnership will be able to get a good part of the way there. I also just want to address the question about food. We are very fortunate that we're able to distribute school lunches and breakfasts. But as I've said before, I have a real concern about food security beyond our school population, beyond our kids. Ours is a city where food security is a real challenge in normal times. It's going to be an even bigger challenge for many families at this time when incomes are drying up or going away and businesses are closing their doors. So that's something that we're very focused on. We don't have any great answers yet. It's something that we're focused on working hard to try to put some efforts in place, but I think we just have to, one of the things we have to do collectively is shine a bright light on those things that worry us and concern us at this time, because we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to address those things. I also wanted to address a couple of other things. We have, I think a number of us have gotten complaints about concerns about price gouging at various stores or bodegas. I want to encourage everybody, feel free to share that information with us. You can share that on 311, you can share that with my office. You can also go directly to the State Attorney General's website. The State Attorney General has been really focused on this and appreciate his and his team's leadership. So I really encourage everybody, again, feel free to share that with us, call 311, but also feel free to go directly to the Attorney General's office and the Attorney General's website if you have any concerns. Let me ask Chief Freeman, Director Arroyo, or Chairperson Clark if they want to add anything. Oh. Okay. Any other questions? The name of the distillery? It's Hartford Flavor. So they've just shifted over their production from liquor to the sanitizers, and we appreciate that. Any other questions?
You talked yesterday about the duration of all of this, and I'm sure after pretty much 1 week, somewhat of a shutdown, everybody's psychologically off. Is getting any other views about how long this could go on? Because it's a tough question, probably unanswerable.
It's not. So the question was about how long we think all this will go on. It's not an answerable question. It's not something that that I can answer. I don't think it's something that anybody can answer right now. I think one of the things that we know is that if we're successful at slowing down the spread of this virus, that also means that we may be stretching out the timeline. We avoid that peak that overwhelms our hospital systems, our healthcare system, but we also may be spreading it out and maybe dealing with this for longer. So I think we all have to be prepared for the disruption that we're experiencing right now to last for quite a while, and that's going to be very difficult. It's why at the same time as we are focused so much on providing immediate support to families through food distribution and trying to get learning opportunities to kids through distribution of Chromebooks and distance learning plan, and making sure that our first responders have the equipment and the support they need. We're also talking with our legislators at both the state and federal level about the urgent need for assistance for families and businesses. We've seen a level of unemployment claims over the last week that dwarfs what this country saw in the worst month of the post-2008 Great Recession. The economic impact of this is going to be deeply painful. And I think we need the federal government to act on a massive scale, and we need to make sure that that relief gets directly to Main Street, gets directly to neighborhoods, gets directly to individuals and families who are losing their jobs, and gets directly to those businesses that are closing their doors and need that help if they're ever going to reopen. So, you know, we're prepared for this. We're expecting this to last a long time, but we desperately need that large-scale, massive effort right now from the federal level, because that's just the only level of government that has the resources and the capacity to lead an effort of that scale to get in the game in a big, big way. Lastly, tomorrow we'll be holding a teletown hall for anybody in the community who wants to join it. I had a teletown hall for city employees this morning. What that means, some people have asked, what does a teletown hall mean? It means basically a very large conference call. Everybody is invited to call in. You can find the information at my Facebook page. It's just Mayor Bronin, facebook.com/Mayor Bronin. And you can get the call-in information there. We're going to be doing a call out to a big part of our community tomorrow with a phone call that invites people to stay on the line to join the town hall. So hopefully we'll be able to reach a lot of people. We think that's important because there's still so many questions out there and so much uncertainty about what we're going through, and we want to try to communicate in every way we possibly can directly with the community, including taking questions and doing our best to answer them. And I'll say now what I'll say tomorrow, and I've said many, many times, the answer to too many of the questions is going to be we don't know yet, but we'll always be honest about what we don't know, honest about what we're trying to do, and share as much information as possible. So thank you very much, everybody. Oh, I'm sorry. The town hall tomorrow is at 2 o'clock.